Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 38 of the Fifth Meeple Board Game Podcast. We are a group of diverse friends who offer our takes on the latest and greatest board games to hit our table. I am your host, Daniela, the goofy noob, and I'm joined today by the collector.
Hey, this is David.
The intellectual introvert.
Hi, everybody.
Wow.
David said he wanted more energy.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Chris. And
Almost there.
You want me to redo that?
No, it's staying. And we're here with the Deluxeifier.
Hello, it's Pete.
Hey, guys. All right, today is draft day. We're taking tiles and deciding on dice, racking up points like sugar and spice. I'll start in the 15th century France, shepherding sheep, meandering into mines, and developing our dominion, making the Loire Valley our valley and the castles of Burgundy. Then we'll head east to Vienna, gratifying guests with all of our best, then shuffling them off to sleep the night away in our grand Austria hotel. And finally, because we just can't help ourselves, we'll help one of these games check out as we face them off against each other in our ultimate showdown, the Battle of the Funnest. But before we call room service, we have a new segment. David, tell us about it.
Yeah, so today, instead of a topic of the day, we're going to do a new segment called Buy, Borrow, or Burn. So I'm going to give you guys 3 games, and you got to sort them into one of the following categories. Do you want to buy it, do you want to borrow it, or do you want to burn it? The first games that we're going to start with today are Ticket to Ride, Azul, and Century Golem. So these are gateway games that a lot of us have played. You know, we introduce people to. So which one are you putting into what category? Again, the games are Ticket to Ride, Azul, and Century Golem.
So I don't want to burn any of these, but I got to burn one. You got to put the fire to one.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the fun of the segment.
All right, I'll go first because it's relatively clear to me. Ticket to Ride, I've mentioned on this podcast before. I've played that well over 1,000 times on my iPad. I've got 7 or 8 different versions of it. That's definitely a buy to me, as I've proven, again, 7 or 8 times over. I also own Azul, so I guess I would borrow that if I didn't have it. I enjoy that as well. I've got a lot of good memories playing that with my family. Century Golem's pretty good too, but I've only played it a few times, and I don't necessarily feel the call to come back to it. So if I have to burn one, I'll burn that one, but I'll probably feel bad doing it.
All right, I kind of have a different take than you, Chris, on that. So I actually would buy Century Golem. I do have this in my repertoire. I would borrow Azul, even though I have that too in my game group, and I would burn Ticket to Ride. I played it only a couple of times. I think ours are opposite. So the amount of times that we played it. Did you play the actual
Ticket to Ride? Or you play Ticket to Ride Europe, which is like the black sheep of the family?
That's a good question. I think I played the Europe.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well,
That's
then
okay.
I'm...
Well, before you burn it, call me.
Okay. All right. Pete, what do you think?
Well, I'm exactly with what you said, Danielle. I am. I had it written down here. Yeah, I've played Ticket to Ride many times. You can burn that. We'll burn those bridges already. As far as the buy and borrow, I think I've also looked at Century Golem. I'd like to try that one. I think I'd like to buy that one. Azul, I haven't played yet. That would be a borrow. It really doesn't appeal to me, so I'd like to kind of get an idea if I liked it or not first.
Wow, I didn't know you didn't play some of these games, Pete. I thought these were... Everybody's played them. So.
No, I play all the heavy, hard ones.
Oh, so my thing, I'm exactly the same as the last two. So I guess we're all opposite of Chris. I'm definitely buying Century Golem. I'm borrowing Azul. And I'm just burning Ticket to Ride. I played it too much. I think I'm just burned out on it, so gotta burn it.
You should try Europe.
I'm definitely burning Europe. I might keep the original one, but I'm definitely burning Europe.
So you get a game, you like it enough to play it so much that then you just want to burn it and just...
Done with it.
Gone.
It's like the cardboard crushes. You're done with them after a certain time.
I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, David. That was a great little segment that we had there. I'm hoping to do more of those in the future. So we'd love to know what all you guys out there have to think on our buy, borrow, and burn. Let us know by sending us an email at thefifthmeeple@gmail.com. Follow us on social media or in our BGG Guild, or check us out on our website at thefifthmeeple.com. In addition to subscribing to our show, one of the best ways to help us grow is to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you happen to listen. And if you do, we just might read one of your comments on a future episode. And speaking of, we actually recently heard from one of our faithful listeners. David, tell us about that email.
Yeah, so we got an email from Seth. I won't mention his last name, but he's from Chicagoland. So Seth, if you're listening, this is what Seth had to write about our show. He said, I really appreciate the format of the podcast and the diversity of the hosts, being that I only really got serious about the hobby in the last 10 years. It wasn't until the last 5 years, though, that I started making board games my ultimate favorite hobby. Your show resonates with me on so many levels as a gamer, be it Daniela's lighthearted, funny newcomer takes, Pete's need to deluxify his games, David's need to add all the games, or the enjoyment of playing a nice, quiet solo game like Chris. Your show has it all, and that's why I get excited with every episode drop. I look forward to each episode's Battle of the Funnest Showdown and hope it's 2 games that I've played. I love to pick my favorite of the 2 and hope like hell that it wins. Anyways, thanks again for a great listen in 24. Can't wait to see what you'll bring in 2025. Keep up the great work. So thanks to Seth. I also see here that you're attending Origins this year, and so hopefully me and Chris can meet up with you and get a couple games in. And if the rest of the game decides to come, maybe they could play with us too.
Cool. Yeah, great. Thanks for writing.
Yeah, I was really pleased to see Seth reach out to us. I see him out on social media a lot, and it was really good to hear from him. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Origins, and maybe we can sit down with him.
Awesome. You guys can do your next hate batch with him and see which games you guys all don't like. Yeah. All right. Well, guys, being princes and princesses comes with royal responsibilities. Let's move into our discussion of the Castles of Burgundy.
Castles of Burgundy is a 2 to 4 player tile drafting and placement game that settles you into the role of an aristocrat seeking to expand your princedom. The game takes place over 5 phases, each consisting of 5 rounds. Each phase begins by stocking 6 depots on the game board numbered 1 through 6 with tiles of various types, the amount and type of which depends on player count, and with 5 goods tiles, 1 for each round. Each round starts with all players rolling 2 dice, while the start player rolls an additional die, which determines where a goods tile is placed. In turn order, players then take 2 actions which are limited by the values on their rolled dice. Your action options include taking a hex tile from the game board from a depot that matches a number on your dice, placing it into one of 3 storage spaces on your personal board, moving a hex tile from that storage into your estate onto a location that matches both the type of tile and a number on your dice, selling all of one type of goods tile whose number matches a number on your dice, gaining points and silverlings for doing so, taking 2 worker tiles which can be used on future actions to modify the values of your dice, and as an extra action, buying a hex tile from a special depot once per turn. When moving tiles into your estate, you receive a bonus based on the type of tile being placed. Light green animal tiles earn you points based on how many of that type of animal are in that pasture. Dark green castles give you an immediate extra turn. Gray mines earn you 1 silverling at the end of each phase. Blue ship tiles move you up in turn order and also allow you to take goods tiles from the board. Yellow knowledge tiles give you special abilities for the rest of the game, and brown building tiles give you one of 8 bonuses, each unique to its building type. Players earn points from their buildings, knowledge, and animal tiles for each region they complete in their estate, selling goods tiles and for any remaining goods tiles, silverlings, and workers at the game's end. The player with the most points wins the game, while the others are left to tend to the sheep and work in the mines. The Castles of Burgundy was designed by Stefan Feld and was first published in 2011 by Ravensburger and Alia.
All right. Thanks, Chris, for that overview. So, guys, when playing this game, what are some of the things that we like? What works well? What is just the enjoyable moments that we have here?
I myself enjoy dice manipulation, I enjoy drafting, and I enjoy tile laying. Each one of those is individual mechanisms. And this game, for me, just does a beautiful job of putting all 3 of those mechanisms together into what, again, for me is a really fun game to play. I played this. I knew right away that I wanted to buy it. There are several games I've said that about, but a lot of games I'll play, I'm like, this one, I was like, I got to buy that. It's just a matter of finding the right time and the right price. I think, David, you ended up finding one for me. You gave me a call, and I said, yep, grab it for me. And it was just, again, that perfect mix. It can be a bit of a point salad, but I think that helps keep your options open where you always have something to do that can advance your cause, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I agree. The thing that I really like about the game is there is always something to do. It may not be an optimal move for you, but it gets you ready for your next big play. You can have an awesome play where you're putting down a tile and pulling another back tile because of what it did, and then, manipulating those dice. You can really do a lot in a turn. And then other turns, you may just be, turning in a die to get 2 workers, and that's it. But it will set you up for the next turn, which I think is really interesting about the game. There's always a choice that you have. You never really feel locked out of doing something enjoyable on the game. I know, Chris, I think I was the one who brought my deluxe version out the first time when we played it, and you enjoyed it, and I think that's when you were excited to buy it. Before I bought my deluxe version, I actually went out and bought a $15 copy because I wanted to play it first to really see if I wanted to take that investment of, it was $100+, I think, for the whole full deluxe version. And I'm really glad I did. I played it with Dave, and the first time it was like, wow, this is just, there's something to do. And even though, as you said, there's a point salad to it, you're doing something, the other person's doing something else, the points really come close at the end as long as you're really making those moves count. And And that's another thing I do like about the game, that even though you can kind of go in little directions, there's a little bit of racing with it, it all seems to come together. Still, the best person will win if you play, smartly and work on the combinations. I think that really turns out well for you in the end for points.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I like the decision points this game gives you. It is dice drafting, so sometimes you think, hey, if I'm rolling dice, how much agency do I actually have? But I think this game gives you a lot of different options. Even when you roll high or low or whatever that case might be, you can get workers that could help, adjust that dice roll. But then also just looking at the board, there's always stuff you can do to manipulate the board game, say, with everybody else. So I do think there's a lot of different interaction based off what you're drafting, because a lot of times you might have one or two things come to mind that you want to take from the board, but if you don't take one of those two things, the other one's probably gone. So a lot of times you really have to ask yourself, what path do I want to go down? But I do think there are multiple paths to win in this game, so I do think that's helpful as well, because you won't get everything that you always want, but sometimes you just have to kind of run the analysis, which I think could be one of my concerns in this game, but I'll talk about that later.
I think to just expound on the couple things too that we do like about the mechanics of this game with the dice rolling stuff. To me, another thing that I like about this is the pattern building and the placement of the tiles, because you can do a bunch of different things no matter where you kind of put your castle and where you kind of start and where you want to move to and how you think you want to play the game that time. The last time I played, I really went for a lot of the ships and stuff. So it's just cool to take a different kind of charter every time you go and play the game. To me, that little puzzle within the puzzle of the game is really fun. The player board is really nice, working through that and just sorting through my own kingdom on how I want to score points and complete my own area. So I really like that. And even though I think like on the original version, it's when we played first at your house, Chris, it's a small little board and then the player boards are average size and the pieces are just cardboard. They're not fancy or anything like that. I just don't think it needs to be deluxeified in a sense. Your game, Pete, is amazing, honestly. But I think for the game, for what it is, you can still have really fun without all those pieces and components being deluxeified as well. So whatever side of the budget you are on with this game, I think you can enjoy the game either way, at the low end of it or the high end of this game.
Well, to go along with that, I still have both versions, and I do take the older version, and if I go to a game night, I'll bring that instead of bringing the full version. But if I have my buddies over and we're going to be playing, my buddy Jeff from Germany, I know I introduced that to him, and he really liked it. He went out and he wanted to get the deluxe version for his daughter, so that was really cool that he enjoyed it that much that he really jumped on it. I do want to add one other thing that I think is really interesting is there's a little key area. So when you buy a tile, you don't get to place it out right away. You got to put it in your key area, and there's a spot for 3 of those. And just that simple mechanic, I think, really adds some decisions to make, because you can't just take something and put it out. You have to plan. So when you use that die and you buy it, you might buy it with a 5 die, and then the next time you roll, you're trying to figure out where it might be able to go. So I just think that little component of taking that instead of laying it down like you do in so many other games where you pick a tile and you put it down right away, that really kind of adds that complexity that I like on it, just that little extra decisions that you got to make.
And how many times have you seen 2 tiles that you know that they're going to fit perfectly, and you grab the first one, you go to grab the second one, and you don't have space for it?
Right. Yeah.
Not me, because I plan accordingly.
Okay. Just kidding. You mentioned also, Danielle, the ship tiles. I like the ship tiles in the fact that they're used for determining first player. And I know, David, you're always looking for creative ways of snatching the first player position. But what I also like about it is, well, you can be aggressive and say, I'm going to take this first player, which is really powerful when there's certain tiles you really need. It also potentially sets you up to end up all the way at the end of player order if other people catch up to you. Every one of those ship tiles that you place, you move up in turn order, but then people stack on top of you, and whoever's on top wins. And so it is sort of, I want to be aggressive, but you could pay for it later on.
Well, I'll add to that I've seen Dave play and not go after that first player marker or try to be first and still do well. You just have to make those decisions that you're left with. You might not have the optimal decision, but everybody else is fighting to try to maybe go ahead and get the things that they want, but they may not be so strategic on those as you're trying to be first. So it's an interesting play on the game.
Yeah, I played a lot of the ships in the last game, but it was interesting as people started catching up how those first player markers did start to stack and go back and forth. So it was a neat game, I think, our last game.
And the last thing that I'll say is that we talked in previous episodes about how it feels to chain actions together and be able to basically take several moves with one when you do that. There are certainly opportunities here. Some of the building powers allow you to basically do a number of things that would typically take one of your turns to do, and you only have so many turns throughout the game. But if you set that up in a certain order, and you can really do some powerful things, and maybe that's the way you end up getting those 2 tiles that you wanted. You take the first one, and then you play a tile that allows you to then take the second one before anyone else gets to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like Danielle had mentioned, you're filling in your own kind of board with the tiles. And so there is some player interaction when you're trying to draft stuff, and that's kind of where the interaction's really at. But once you get on your board, nobody can really mess with you. So, if you're looking for a game that has some player interaction, but not necessarily, you don't want people messing with your own board, I think that's why a lot of people like this game, because it's very satisfying to see your own board fill up. It kind of gives me the feelings of Ark Nova, stuff like that, where, you're constantly doing that. That's why I like tile builders sometimes.
All right, guys. So jumping off that, what are some of the frustrations that lie within this game? I know, I'll just start. In our last game, I thought there were great opportunities to gain lots of points with the beige tiles, and not the yellow ones, the beige tiles. But knowing what each and every single one of those does can be extremely aggravating to try and link them to your board to get the points that you need. Our other player, our fifth meeple, Dave, played this extremely well in our last game and literally blew us all out of the water by linking all of these tiles together. So kudos to him, even though I'm going to punch him. No. But he did a really good job of knowing what each of those tiles was, the symbology. Maybe just a little player aid would have been a little bit helpful, or a printed card or something, instead of having to flip throughout the book or the back page and just kind of knowing what those all mean. So I would say just take some time in advance and look at what all those do. It's not hard to understand what they do, but you need to know what they all do.
You can't tell just by looking at it which one's the market and which one's the workshop and what that means. Yeah, when I bought this, I played it a lot, again, multi-handed solo, and it didn't take me long to say, okay, I just got to put everything on one piece of paper so that I can see what are all the buildings. And then the yellow knowledge tiles, there's 20-some different ones, and the iconography on there isn't always really well explained, easy to understand. And so I'm always looking, okay, do I even want to draft that? And even once I draft it, what does this do again? So some of that's kind of tough.
Yeah, because you can essentially have like a really good game going for you, and then somebody, again, Dave could have a couple of those tiles, and he again went 60 plus points like ahead of a lot of us, and just ended up doing really good. But it is frustrating to learn the symbology. It kind of takes me back to the Dracula thing. Rest in peace, pieces. I don't know. That's just one of those things that frustrates me when trying to learn these games or play them. Because from game to game, you could be learning 50 different icons for every single game. It's just a lot.
Yeah, I do think the deluxeified version, or like the ultimate edition that they just came out with, I think that does help alleviate some of this, because, you turn over the tile and it's written on it. I don't think it's originally in the original games. Maybe Pete could attest because he owns both copies. That kind of influenced my decision when I was buying this game to go up and buy the deluxeified version, so that I don't have to always be flipping back and forth, especially teaching people.
On the deluxeified version, is the color scheme better than what it normally is? I mean, it's like when they designed this game and put it together, it's like, let's make a game with 27 shades of green and let everybody else just figure it out.
Yeah, it is better. I also got, with the deluxe version, I got the actual tiles. So they're, what are they made out of? Acrylic tiles. Those do not have the information on the back of them on what they do, but the game also comes with the cardboard tiles, and those do have that on the back. I think some people have made printouts so you could stick them on the back if you wanted to. My gripe with the game, and it's not really a gripe, is the setup can be a little long. Now, as David said, the deluxe version comes with bags, and a lot of that stuff is stored in the bag, so it makes the setup a lot easier, and it's just a little bit fiddly with the original version because you're separating things out, and there's a little black icon on some of them to determine, that they're the black market, where you can get those from the center by paying 2 of those coins. So the setup on it is a little bit long. It's not horrible, but that's probably one of the things to keep in mind when you go to set it up.
Yeah, I think each of our games that we had played for 4 players, it was right around the 2-hour mark each time. So if you're looking for time on this game, that's kind of where it falls under. The other thing I don't really necessarily like this game is, we teach a lot of new people different games. And I think this game definitely, compared to other games, there's a lot of symbology, like Danielle was saying, there's a lot of different things going on in this game. But there's distinct player advantages for people that are sitting, I want to say, next to newbies because they don't know how to draft. I mean, it really is a drafting game. If you are coming to the table and you have people at different experience levels, just know kind of going in that there could be an advantage to somebody that's playing next to a new player, because that power of going next behind them in turn order sometimes is a really powerful thing if they're not drafting what tiles everybody else on the board might say. Sometimes there's obvious choices of what you maybe should take based off what comes out. And if that person's not doing that, then there are some distinct advantages sometimes in this game, more than so others.
I think one of the things you mentioned was the timing on this too, David, which you said was around the 2-hour mark. I thought in the last game that we played with 4 players, I felt like it overstayed its welcome by like 15 to 20 minutes, because I remember at one point looking down and I went, we have 2 more rounds to go with like the market tiles that were supposed to come out. I don't know if I don't know if anybody else felt like that or if you guys think it's the right amount of time, but I guess for me, when I was looking at it, I was like, it just seemed like the game should have been over sooner than it was.
Yeah, I think I feel that way sometimes. I do think it's right size. I think the number of rounds are based on just the space and what level of tightness you want towards the end, because it certainly is a different game in that last round than it is in the first with respect to what you're trying to accomplish and what you have available. But yeah, even though I like this game a lot, I do agree that sometimes it's like, wow, I can't believe we have a whole other phase to go.
Right.
Yeah. And maybe that addresses my last gripe, although I don't think it would necessarily make it longer. But the game doesn't play 5 players, and so we're the 5th meeple. We have 5-player group, and it's a great game. But there's no option whatsoever. None of the expansions go to 5 players. And again, I understand why it changes the whole game with the drafting and all that. I don't know that you could do it, but it's still something to know. You're on 4 max.
All right. Well, David, why don't you take us over to the collector's corner on this game? What are we at here?
Yeah, so if you're just looking for the regular version of Castles, right now you can buy it on Amazon. It's going for $49.99. So it has held up. I mean, over time, just the original, just the cardboard version. If you are looking for a used copy, I think Pete had mentioned earlier, he got one for $15. I mean, a lot of times we're seeing them on the used market right now between $20 and $30. If you're looking for the deluxeified version, I wouldn't recommend buying it on Amazon because right now it's $299.99, which I think is quite a lot. I think you're going to be paying somewhere normally around $150 and $175 probably from somebody, and that would probably be a good deal if you're looking for the huge box with some of the expansions and everything else in it.
All right, guys, final thoughts. Pete, what do you think about the deluxeifying of this game? Obviously, you have both games. You've kind of mentioned that a little bit. Any other comments on that?
Well, as David said, looking at my stats here, I purchased it during GameFound or Kickstarter, whatever it was, for $150. So, and that was, again, the acrylic tiles, which I enjoyed. It also had some of the expansion things. It's very nice to play with, and that's one of the things that, again, I really enjoy the tactile feel of those acrylic tiles. Really do make a little bit of a difference. When we're playing the old version, usually the tiles are just flipped over upside down, then you refill them. But it is something, to say when you reach in and pulling out those tiles of the bags and putting them out, it just adds it to me. I enjoy the game very much. As I said, my buddy Jeff, who lives over in Germany, when he comes over, we usually play this one. He really enjoyed that version. He bought it for his daughter. If you like the game, like I said, play it first. Either borrow it from somebody, buy it. This one I wouldn't burn, though. That's what I would say.
Good. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I like this game a lot. I'll go through phases and I'll play several times and then I'll put it back on the shelf, but I'm always willing to take it back out. And if somebody's got it, I'm walking over to that table. It's a really good game for me.
Yeah, I think as being a newer in the board game industry, I don't think this is a game for, first-time players, new players, but I would think as you develop and understand the different mechanics that you like in games, if you do like the kind of set collection, the tile placement, the dice rolling, look into this game after about a year or so of playing some of these types of games, and I think you'll really enjoy this. Well, guys, the wind just shifted and that pasture is really reeking. So let's head back to town and check on our discussion of the Grand Austria Hotel.
Grand Austria Hotel is a 2 to 4 player dice drafting and contract fulfillment game that places you in charge of a glorious hotel. Nestled in Vienna, you must feed your guests and fill your hotel, all while maintaining the good favor of the Emperor. Grand Austria Hotel takes place over 7 rounds, with players taking 2 actions per round in snake order. At the start of each round, several dice are rolled and placed into areas on the action board matching their value. At the start of your turn, you may choose one of 5 available guests to welcome into your cafe. You then draft one of the available dice, taking the action associated with its value. The strength of the action is determined by how many dice of that number are present when you draft it, and you have the option of paying a krone or a coin to boost that strength by 1. Dice of value 1 allow you to take strudel or cake cubes in an amount equal to the strength, but you can never take more cake than strudel. These cubes can be immediately placed on your guest cards or placed into your kitchen for later use. Dice of value 2 work similarly to the 1s, but in this case you are drafting coffee and wine cubes. 3s allow you to prepare rooms in your hotel, which comes at a cost if they're not on the first floor. The number of rooms you can prepare is equal to the strength of the action. 4s allow you to either gain additional coins or to advance on the Emperor track. 5s allow you to play a staff card from your hand. These cards come with a cost, but you get a discount equal to the strength of the action. And 6s allow you to take any of the other 5 actions, but you have to pay a coin to do it. Each guest has a color associated with it, identifying the type of guest they are and the corresponding room type they demand. Once you have satisfied their eating and drinking desires, you may place your guests into a corresponding room as long as you prepared it ahead of time. This free action often earns you immediate points as well as other benefits unique to each guest. 3 times during the game, players check to see if they've pleased the Emperor, gaining a reward if they have, but receiving punishing ramifications if they have not. Players also compete for 3 politics goals. Throughout the game, players earn points for placing guests into rooms, their position on the Emperor track, certain staff cards, and a few other bonus opportunities. After 7 rounds, the player with the most points wins the game and never has to do the guest laundry again. Grand Austria Hotel was designed by Simone Luciani and Virginia Gigli and was first published in 2015 by Lookout Games.
All right, well, that's Grand Austria Hotel for us. Let's talk about some of the things that we enjoy in this game. I'll start off here. I don't know if everybody at the table knows, but I have a BA in hotel restaurant management from college, and I thought this game was gonna, when it came out, when we put it on the table, I was like, oh, this is just gonna be, semantics running through this, just normal and just, gonna be a typical game. However, I was pleasantly surprised with this game. I thought the theme, it was so unique. It actually came through the process of going through the game, the way that you are preparing rooms, you're seating people, you're feeding people, you're putting them to bed. It was really incredible how this all came together. I think that's one of the things that this game really does amazingly well, is having the theme pull through the game.
I agree with you 100% on that. That was the main goal that I had, or that I was going to mention here, is it's so thematic. It makes the game very easy to teach. There are some iconographies that we got to struggle through a little bit, but it just makes sense on what you're doing with getting those components and getting your, food and your coffee and that, serving the people. And then, as Daniela said, sending them up, having those rooms ready to be prepared so they're ready for them. And I just really like this game. It's a cardboard crush on me. I still enjoy playing it, but this is a game where if you don't plan correctly, you're going to get wiped out. You really are. And the last couple of games I've played, I've done very poorly because I just haven't planned well. I get so caught up in just trying to fulfill those orders, and I'm not paying attention to what's going on. And sometimes I don't take advantage of those dice that come out, because that's really important, because the strength of that dice really matters. We play a lot of games where, it's always resources. And this is a game that does matter, because the more strength of an action you get, the more powerful it is, and it really does come through in the game. If you're trying to take a strength or an action that's a 1 or even a 2, you're getting 2 pieces, and it makes it tough to get through the game and actually score well.
And sometimes you have to take that action that's weak, and it just feels so bad doing that. and sometimes you just take, hey, there's 6 ones there. I got to take it. I don't necessarily need them now, but okay, the next card I draft, I'll use them up. And you mentioned the iconography as well, Pete, and I'll use that as an opportunity for one of my positives. I think the rule book has just a fantastic reference. Every card's numbered. It's easy to see that number, and you go to the book and you just look up that card number. It tells you exactly what it does. And so while at times you're like, okay, I might not know what all those cards do, it's very easy for me to figure it out and then just move on.
Yeah, the colors are very bold as well. You have your red, blue, yellow, and then the green is the wild. And it does just make it a lot easier when you're trying to look at what you have in your hand and what those cards are. They're very clear on what color they are.
Yeah, I mean, you guys stole my thunder. I think, there's a lot of great things that you guys have been saying, but I do like the rule book in this game, where I could just look up a card number. I think more games should do that, especially when you have so many cards. I think it just makes it very efficient. And you can just pass that rule book around while somebody else is like, I have no clue what this thing means. And I think that's how rule books should be as far as that goes. But yeah, and then I agree with Pete, all the different vibrant colors in this game, everything's very distinct. You don't have to question where things go. You don't have to question, is that a blue or a purple? They did a good job with that design and kind of putting that forth. So yeah, I think the structure of the game's, pretty good too.
Yeah, the overall mechanics here, too, kind of similar to what we talked about in the last game with the dice rolling contracts. Hanogen, I love the luck aspect of this game, too, with the dice rolling. One of the things I think is the funniest, it kind of draws everybody together and kind of like you're cheering against people and doing other things, is when people take that opportunity to do the re-roll. That was really fun to watch because you're getting hosed like every single time. Yeah. A lot of people, you think, oh, I'm going to roll these dice and it's going to be better, and it ends up being worse and worse and worse. And then, more dice are going out of the game as you start to re-roll and people are placing their dice. It's just like, it's one of those fun things. Like at the end of those type of rolls, like you're really playing for, I guess you're going to be Motel 8 while the rest of us are at the Ritz. So it was just really fun to watch that.
It's like you're looking at my sheet because I had the passing mechanism as my number one. Hey, this is what's great about this game, which is weird. It's like, wow, yeah, passing, what a great mechanism.
Yeah.
And you think, that's just too powerful. You're going to get to re-roll, and like you said, every time it's just a slow swirl of death to where you're going to get an even weaker action than what you ultimately were trying to avoid.
You think that taking one die out isn't going to matter that much, but it's brutal because you're re-rolling and you're back 1 through 6, so you might have 4 or 5 dice left out there and you pull one out and now you're rolling 4 and you roll, it's not what I want. Well, all right, well, I'll try again, pull another one out. It goes downhill real quick.
Yeah. And to back to your earlier point, Pete, about doing things right early in the game. I think this is not a long game. You're not spending hours playing this game at all. So you got to make those moves early and get in and know what you're doing again. And money was tight for a couple people as well. I just really enjoyed how everybody had their own little personal struggle.
Every time I have a struggle with this game.
So I'll give one that for me was a positive, but originally when I was writing it down, maybe it's also a negative for some people. I was thinking it was going to be for me as I was writing it down. The Emperor tiles can be especially brutal. So the Emperor tiles, at 3 times per game, you're going to be evaluated how far in the track did you get, and you get a reward if you got to a certain point, but if you didn't, you get a penalty. And there's a couple exceptions, but for the most part, those penalties can be brutal. And to me, I was thinking about that, and I actually like that because it prevents you from just completely ignoring that aspect of the game and say, I'm going to max out over here. If you do, you're going to pay for it. And I've seen a couple of people try to do that and say, I'm not going to worry about it. And they end up paying for it. Again, unless you got just the right Emperor tiles where they're not going to get you, you're going to pay for that.
I paid dearly.
Well, then let's roll right into some of the things that frustrate us about this game. Both Pete and Dave just talked about the colors and how great and nice they were, but I will say the strudel and the cake drove me a little nuts as we were playing, because you think you're looking at sometimes the strudel and the cake color, which is like a beige and a white, and that sometimes like, oh no, like I needed the different color. And the ratio on the strudel and cake also, I would say, was like, oh, you can get 45 strudel, but you can get 1 cake then. It was just a little too tight in that respect, which was just very frustrating because the game moves so fast. Cards are coming out so fast. Your plans are getting ruined so fast, time and time again, that was just one little thing that just bothered me.
Well, I'm going to state the obvious one here, and I think everybody's going to agree with me. why do you make the board go up to 75 and then start over?
It doesn't sound that bad, but it's terrible.
It's horrendous. I mean, I'm almost thinking of just redoing the outside so it goes to 100 or even 50. Pick something even
just
that's
something
easy
that ends with
to
a zero.
add.
Right, something ends with a zero.
Oh, I mean, it may sound stupid. You can agree with me, you can disagree, but when you go to score and then you're trying to add 16 to 72, and then you're going around the board and it doesn't make sense. It's just a killer.
I agree with you, Pete. That's hard math to do over there. But the biggest thing, my gripe with this game to me is that I just feel like I'm more boxed in than other games. So the way I like to play games is with a lot of agency, meaning that I can do what I want when I want. And this game, because of how the round structures are, they're very tight, meaning if you don't put out a guest, or if you fall behind putting out guests almost every turn, you're never going to fill up your hotel. You're never even going to get close because you're going to fall behind there. And the game kind of forces you to play a certain way. I'm not saying that it's necessarily bad, but for somebody like me, I like to tend to like break games. I like to go heavy in something or heavy in something else and see if it pans out in the end or I get blown out. But a lot of times in this game, I feel like I have to do certain things just to keep competitive, and I can't actually play a strategy that I want to play. So to me, sometimes the agency, I feel like, isn't there as much as in other games because of how the structure works with I can only take so many tables, and then if I don't put a guest in, I fall behind there. I'm never going to catch back up because there really is no catch-up mechanic if you stop putting in guests.
It's thematic, man.
Well...
It's thematic.
It's same reason why I don't like those video games that are, serving
I know,
this kind of style.
But it's not too long ago you said, why do you have a game about making wine where you can win without making wine?
I don't like that game either.
I know, but what you did, one of the things you said you didn't like about it was, you can play the whole game and not make wine. And so here's a game about being a hotel manager where you actually have to manage the hotel and you have to get the guests through. So I'll just agree to disagree. Yeah. I like the idea that, no, it is pretty tight and you've got to do certain things in certain orders. Just the same way I actually like the way that, hey, it's tough to get cake. But then when you do get it, and again, that's why when there's 6 ones out there, you got to take it because that is going to pay off. It's harder to get cake, but the things that then you bend, when you actually use those cakes, you get more points for them. So I like that puzzle, but that's the kind of game that I like where you've got to piece all those things together.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played this game a lot, but my other gripe about this game is I do think there are cards that are overpowered. I can't say for sure because I've only played it, 5 to 7 times, but for those of you who have played this game a lot, you might be yelling at the TV right now or yelling at your radio. But for me, I just feel like there are certain cards in this game that when they come out and somebody gets them, especially early on, it's very hard, I think. Some of them, I just think the power is just very, very good compared to other cards that other people might start the game with.
Well, I think that one time you had a couple cards. I think it was you. I'm not sure where you can prepare red rooms for free, and then you paired it with you can prepare blue rooms for free. And one of those you might have got to play for free yourself, and all of a sudden, that freed you up to do things that we're all struggling for because money can be tight, as was mentioned earlier. So I agree, and maybe it's not easy to get those out, but there are certain things that can happen, maybe not related to skill, that all of a sudden you've got a big advantage.
Well, one of the things with those are the staff cards in particular.
Yeah. Yes.
When we start playing the game, there is a draft, and going back to Danielle's, comments about other games that, you kind of got to know. If you're playing with somebody's experience, they're going to know which of those cards may be a little bit more powerful. Now, I will say, David, you played those blue and red cards, and I thought the next game, all right, you know what? It worked for David. I'm going to do it. And it did not work because then, the cards that do come out in that river, or, that are able to be selected, they're not there. And, I'm struggling trying to get those rooms prepared because there's only, 2 3s out there and you can't prepare a lot of rooms. So I think there are some powerful cards, like a lot of games that can kind of push that. I enjoy that aspect of it too, because then, when you do see that, it's like, wow, that really worked. And then there's other times where you just miss. Now, the one other thing that I think we've all talked about too is the snake draft. Yeah. In a 4-player game, that can be a little grueling, especially when you're the first and last player to go. If people aren't moving quickly, especially playing with, somebody who hasn't played quite a bit, it can feel a little bit long because as people are taking their turns, that board is changing. So the things that you might have wanted to take are gone by the time that it comes to you, and now you got to make your decision. I can think of a number of times where I knew the card I wanted to take, and Dave took it ahead of me, and that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, so you're not only waiting forever for your turn, you're experiencing misery after misery as you see every die you wanted, every card you wanted be taken away from you.
You almost can't even look at the board like between like players 2 and 3 because it's got to come back around.
Yeah, the snake draft. I do kind of like that, but I think it works well with 2 players and 3 players. If you get up into the 4-player count, just be aware that that's going to be a sticky point for some people.
Yeah, that was one of my frustrations as well, pinning down that snake play, because and I'll say the opposite, Pete. You said playing with new players. I'll say playing with players who want to eke out every little point and every little dessert and room and yada yada yada, and linking everything together, and so people are taking like 5 minutes just to do like the one action item, and it just like that can be frustrating. I do think I've played this with 4 people a number of times. I would like to try 2 and 3 players just to see how different that snake play would be.
The one thing that I will say though about 4 players that I think is better as opposed to 2 players is those cards that are available for you to draft off the the guests at the table, they're only moving when someone takes them. And so in a 2-player game, they're only moving so much. You don't see a variety, and you can get into a point where there's cards that nobody really wants, and someone's just got to bite the bullet and take it, or you're just kind of stuck.
Mm-hmm. I know Pete got into a money hole or something like that. There are dead ends in this game where if you could play yourself out of the game about the 4th or 5th round, and then I think sometimes potentially who the winner is before the 6th and 7th round. So sometimes I feel like you're just, especially the last round, you're just playing, but nobody's really taking anything. I think the last round kind of finishes not on a high point. It's kind of like, duh, and then you're just done.
Everybody's just trying to eke it out, which often means your last turn's a dud.
Yeah.
I guess I'll do this.
Yeah, and it's just not the last turn, the 7th round in this game is always just kind of to me every time I played it. So
listen, guys, not every place can be a Michelin rated star restaurant. Some things are just Taco Bell.
But but nobody's taking any guests then because it's a penalty.
Well, David, why don't you take us over to the collector's corner and tell us about the pricing on this?
Yeah, so the pricing on this right now, you can buy this on Amazon for $64.99. I feel like that's really high compared to when I had seen this like even a couple of years ago. I thought it was closer to the $50 range. So maybe inflation, it's going up right now. If you're looking for this game on the used market, right now you can find it somewhere between $40 and $45. So there is value in this game. If you're buying it and holding it, it's not going to lose a ton of value. This game's been around since 2015, so almost 10 years now.
Wow.
And it's still holding value pretty well.
There are a lot of pieces, though, to it, I will say. So maybe that's like the cost.
Well, the one thing that I did for the game is I actually got here comes coins for the game. Chris, I handed you some coins. That is the one little thing that I'll say that if you can do, even if you just use iron clays or something like that, because if you're using the board to track your money, it is very easy to bump that, not know where you were, and you don't pay attention to how little money you have, and it keeps dwindling. It goes down real fast. That would be the one thing that I would say that for sure I would get. Chris, I know you printed out some 3D printed components for me.
They stink.
We tried them. I think it was a good attempt. Yeah.
It took forever, man.
The little strudels are cute.
Well, they're just small, and when you're dealing with cubes, it's easier to work with. Mm-hmm. I do know that there are some components that you can buy the deluxe for. Some of the sites where you can buy the fancier components, they actually have the different strudel and coffees and that. You could do that if you really enjoyed it. This is a game again where I don't think that's necessarily needed. It may add a little bit to your enjoyment of the game, but I would again suggest the coins if you can afford them. And I bought the real
Austrian.
They're the actual
Krones.
Austrian Krones. Yeah. So they weren't that expensive if anybody's really looking to up their game. I purchased a whole big bag of them.
Cool.
So works out well.
Chris?
I think I played the first time with you, Pete. I think it was just you and me sitting at the table. We played 2 games, two-player games. I think I kicked your butt the first game. I was feeling all cocky, and you kicked my butt the second game. It was like, okay, humbled right away, right? And we learned there about how important money was and how tight it was. and starting to learn about, okay, how do you manage your way through the game? But it was another one of those that I got home that night and I was like, okay, I got to go up and start checking out prices and got to get it. I've enjoyed this game since I've had it, and I think it's a really solid game.
Yeah, overall, I think for people looking to get into this game, for new players, again, not a game I would recommend that you get into. There's a lot you got to know. There's a lot you got to manage and learn the different mechanisms on this game. So, again, take your time learning the games, learn what you like about the mechanics, kind of the same advice I gave for the last one. I know I sound like a broken record there, but it's true. Think of the things that you do and don't like in games. But again, and I used to say this all the time and Chris would slap me for it, but try it. No, but just there's things in this game that I thought did really well, especially the theme. Again, the theme's not going to come across for everybody, but overall, I thought this was an extremely enjoyable game and hope to try it at some different player counts in the future. All right, the tables are clean and the guests are asleep, so let's turn the no vacancies sign on and head into today's Battle of the Funnest.
All right, everyone, the moment of truth has arrived. It's time to separate the men from the boys and the games from the toys. We're pitting these games head-to-head against each other in the ultimate face-off. In one corner, weighing in at 2.98 out of 5 with an overall BGG rating of 8.1. Powering through the competition with a tower that will make your flower cower. Bringing the goods like a cabin in the woods, able to dig 2 mines in a single turn, the premier pasture protector, the ruler of the river, the spawn of Stefan, son of a bee sting, the castles of Burgundy. In the other corner, weighing in at 3.21 out of 5 with an overall BGG rating of 8.0, rising above the haters like hotel elevators, tackling tables like Cain did to Abel, serving coffee and strudel to the whole kit and caboodle, the Emperor's agent, the motel master, the 5 stars are the minibar, Grand Austria Hotel. And now, let's see who gets drafted first in today's Battle of the Funnest Showdown. All right, guys, you know how this works. We're going to evaluate these games head-to-head in 5 different categories: theme and production, mechanisms, value for your time, replayability, and the fun factor. The game that gets the most votes wins each category, and the game that wins the most categories takes the prize in our Battle of the Funnest. So let's start pouring with theme and production. Pete.
Yeah, this one's a no-brainer for me. It's Grand Austria Hotel. The theme it's dripping through the game. It makes you understand the game, and the production is very good. I enjoy the cards. They're easy to read. Castles of Burgundy, it's cardboard chips, iconography. It's a great game, but as far as the theme, it just comes way through with Grand Austria Hotel. Daniela? I
need to say no more than everything you just said because that would be repetitive. I'm going to go with Grand Austria Hotel as well. David?
Yeah, so I am also going to agree. I know that's very rare here, but I'm going to agree with you guys. I think Grand Austria, the theme comes through. I know for myself, I don't want to be a hotelier, so therefore the theme is shining. Going over to Chris.
Yeah, we'll just make it 4 for 4. Grand Austria Hotel to me. We talked about the theme. It makes it easier to play the game. You feel like you're running a hotel. Definitely Grand Austria Hotel. So theme and production across the board goes to Grand Austria Hotel. Let's switch now to mechanisms, and I'll go back to Daniela.
I think for the mechanisms, I'm going to go with Castles of Burgundy. I do think it's a little bit cleaner, a little bit more straightforward. I like the overall tile placement. It's to me was a little better overall cohesiveness, I'll say. David.
Yeah, I'm going to have to ditto what Daniela said. I just think the mechanisms that we play with Castles of Burgundy, they mesh really well together. I do like sometimes a little bit of interaction with a little bit of solitaire experience, and that's what I feel like I get with Castles a little bit. I don't feel like when I get the tiles I want, I feel like they're safe. Nobody's going to steal them from me. I don't always like all my games that flavor, but I do like this one. But I will say I do like the push your luck on Grand Austria, so it was almost there just with that one mechanism because I think it's a lot of fun. But for me, Castles of Burgundy is going to take this category. I'm going to send it over to Pete.
I'm going to be on the other side of the fence on this one. I like the mechanisms in Grand Austria Hotel a little bit better. I enjoy that order fulfillment. And this one, it really comes through. The order fulfillment of getting that strudel and the cake and, satisfying the needs of those guests. It really comes through. I enjoy the mechanisms, and I agree. It's very, very clean in Castles of Burgundy, but you are rolling 2 die and you're taking those and you're doing tile placement. You're either moving it from one location to the other. Great, simple mechanic, but I just prefer personally the mechanics and the play in Grand Austria Hotel. Chris?
I am also going to go with Grand Austria Hotel. I think both of them use their mechanisms very well. To me, Castles of Burgundy, all the mechanisms are somewhat similar, whereas Grand Austria Hotel takes several very different mechanisms but meshes them together and requires that you find the way to mesh them together in a very creative and fun way. So for me, Grand Austria Hotel, which means we have a tie, 2-2. Well, we are the fifth meeple, and we have another friend who doesn't do the podcast with us but plays with us quite often, Dave, and he breaks our ties. So, Pete, what did Dave have to say here?
Well, he may no longer be my best friend anymore, but he said, I vote for Castles in Burgundy. I think the mechanics all fit nicely together, and I like the puzzle of feeling and figuring out to maximize each turn. You have so many options. If someone grabs a tile you need in turn order is important. There's multiple ways to win, to use the various tiles that can work well together and increase your points.
All right, thanks, Dave. Dave breaks the tie. Mechanisms goes to Castles of Burgundy, and that ties up our Battle of the Funnest 1-1. We'll move to value for your time. We've commented on this a little bit, but David, let's start with you.
Yeah, so when I was looking over my plays, the average time for Castles was little over 2 hours, 2 hours and like 5 minutes. Grand Austria was about an hour and 56 minutes. So they're right around the 2 hour mark. I asked myself, which one did I like more? I think if Grand Austria is just about a half hour shorter, I would probably give it to this one. But if they're about the same time length when I actually measured it, I'm going to go with Castles of Burgundy. I just don't realize the time's going as fast as it goes, and so that's why I'm going to go that way. I just feel like at the end of the game, Grand Austria struggles a little bit for me for that 7th round. Kicking it over to Daniela.
All right, I'm going to be on the opposite side of this. I'm going to say Grand Austria Hotel for value for your time, mainly for the fact that when we did come up on the end of Castles the one time, like I said, there were about a round or two left, and I was like, this is taking way too long to finish this game. I don't not like the game. I really like both of these games, actually, but for me, Grand Austria, I thought things were moving. They were fast. They were great paced for me. I liked it. And then when it was over, I was like, oh my gosh, like we're done. It's there. We're at the end. So that to me is going to be the important one there. Grand Austria. Pete.
I am going to go with Castles of Burgundy on this one. It just seems like the game is over quickly when I play it. When I play Grand Austria Hotel, I think the thing that throws me a little bit is that snake draft. I really enjoy both games equally, but it's the concept of time that I have that really makes it more of a value for me to play Castles of Burgundy, whether, again, it's the full-blown big version or even the small version, which I played at the last church night. We had it out, 2-player game, and we had it done in an hour and under 40 minutes. So, and it was a good, snappy game, making decisions quickly. So it's going to be Castles of Burgundy to me. Chris?
Yeah, this was a tough one for me because I feel like Castles of Burgundy, your next turn comes quick, and so you're always doing something. And so the amount of your time I feel like you spend playing, or at least it feel like there's less downtime there. Grand Austria Hotel, we've said there's a lot of downtime. However, I feel like when I am taking my turn, I'm much more engaged. There's much more decision space. Castles of Burgundy sometimes I feel like plays itself, or it's like it's obvious this is what I should be doing here. I'm going to go with Grand Austria Hotel to make a long story a little less long. So that puts us at 2-2 yet again. We have to go to Dave to break another tie on a close one.
All right, well, he's my friend again. So he's going to vote for Castles of Burgundy. I always feeling like you are in the game. You never feel like you're waiting for your turn.
All right, thanks, Dave. So Dave breaks another tie. It is 2-3 for value for your time, and Castles of Burgundy takes a 2-1 lead in the overall battle. Now we go to replayability. I'm going to start with this one. I'm going Grand Austria Hotel again, which is the 4th time out of 4 that I've actually voted for Grand Austria Hotel. I'm surprising myself. But again, I think it's just the way those different mechanisms come together. To me, it's a different puzzle every time. I feel like Castles of Burgundy, sometimes it's obvious, here's what you do, and we just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Danielle, I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go against that and say Castles because I think that there's a lot more replayability in the sense of whatever track you want to go on. Do you want to collect farm animals? Do you want to go to the ships? Do you want to do mines? Do you want to start working on those beige tiles and see how you can link? I think there's a lot more to do in that game and to discover. I think Grand Austria Hotel is great, but straightforward, and I know what's going on. So that's my decision.
Wow. So Daniela, I don't think she's the noob anymore because she said exactly what I was going to say.
I've graduated.
I have to agree with her. Castles of Burgundy, again, for me, for everything just that Daniela said. I think she probably stole my script that I have in front of me. But I do think there's just a lot of different avenues you can go. I feel like you're not as boxed in, and you could adjust your strategy on the fly. Even when other people are taking stuff in front of you, I feel like you still have more agency to do what you want to do. Kicking it over to Pete.
Yeah, Castles of Burgundy is going to take it for me. Every game I play, even though you're doing the same actions, the games play out slightly different. You can go after animals if you want. You can go after different, the different paths to victory. I enjoy, again, Grand Austria Hotel. I think it's great, but in playing the game, I know when we played 4 players, we see all those people that come through, and it seems like you're doing the same thing over and over again, and as you're fulfilling them, it just doesn't seem as rewarding for me as Castles of Burgundy does.
All right, so 3-1, Castles of Burgundy takes replayability, takes a commanding lead overall. We go to fun factor. I'll kick it right back to Pete.
Yeah, you guys heard me talk about this. I get clobbered a lot on Grand Austria Hotel. I enjoy that game, but Castles of Burgundy is just so smooth. And when I play it, I'm having fun. I'm engaged. I always feel like I can win it, or I'm at least in it. Whereas if you make a mistake in Grand Austria Hotel, as we said, game's over. You're just along for a ride for another, hour, maybe even an hour and a half. So Castles of Burgundy to me. I'm going to go over to Daniela.
I'm going to actually say in this, I love both of these games a lot. I think they're both very fun. I think there's a lot to discover in them. However, the fun factor, and I'm only saying this for Grand Austria Hotel for me, is because of the theme. I think it's extremely unique. I like the idea and the concept. Castles of Burgundy, we've seen castles in a ton of different things, but again, it's neck and neck for me on this one, but I'm just going to say Grand Austria. David.
Yeah, so when I think about fun factor, there's a lot of things that come into play. Do I have fun, or do I have fun watching other people in their misery? And I just think, how many stories do I have to tell about both games? What games do I actually remember? And to me, I'm surprised, but I'm going to also go with Grand Austria Hotel. I just feel that there are moments in that game where, Pete's out of money and I'm just cracking my head off over here because it takes him like 3 rounds to get back into the game, and even then he's just buried.
That's every game of Grand Austria Hotel we play.
But, I remember those games. When we play, Castles, I might have more fun playing that game personally, but I don't have the stories to tell. I don't remember those epic comebacks or those epic things where somebody's just really in misery and it's just really funny to me. So for that reason, fun factor, I'm going to go with Grand Austria because I think it gives me better moments that I remember. Going over, though, to Chris.
Yeah, even though I voted in all 4 prior categories for Grand Austria Hotel, I'm going to go with Castles of Burgundy here. I just feel like Grand Austria Hotel, while it's certainly a game that I enjoy, and again, it's that puzzly challenge. When I think about, but which one do I have more fun playing? It's Castles of Burgundy. It's a little bit lighter for me. And again, quick actions, always doing something, constantly advancing. It's Castles of Burgundy for me, which means we have yet another tie, which tells you how close these games are. We go to Dave for our final tiebreaker.
All right. Well, Dave emailed me here, and he says, I vote for Castles of Burgundy. Since I like games with good player interaction, multiple paths to victory, and rolling the dice for luck, I enjoy this game.
All right. Well, that means that fun factor also goes to Castles of Burgundy. I think we need to check to see, did Dave just vote across the board for Castles of Burgundy? We'll look at that later on. But that'll do it. And with the score of 4-1, the Castles of Burgundy towers over the competition and wins today's Battle of the Funnest.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of yet another episode of the Fifth Meeple Board Game Podcast. We hope we served you well today, and if you'd like to get in touch, just email us at thefifthmeeple@gmail.com or reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, may all your drafts be tall ones.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Adios, amigos.
We're disappointing you already, David?
It's going to be a long night.
You're definitely editing this one.
A little bit.
What do we like? What? Oh.
You should let him go first.
All right. Let me start that off.
And then I'm not ready.
Yeah.
I forgot your name.
Daniela.
Thank you.
I'm Pete, by the way.
That's Pete. That's David.
Just call me the Chinese guy.
Yeah.
What's your name? David.
I don't even know what that means. It rhymed.